Hey, welcome to my final update video for my one-click plant oracle build in the 0.4 League. Pretty much done with most of my upgrades. The build is pretty much mirror tier. There's not too many upgrades I can do left without it costing a metric ton of currency. I think I could probably get a few upgrades on like my wand and amulet. It's going to cost a couple mirrors, but essentially with the currency I have now, I don't really feel like spending that, so pretty much just saving for some gambling at the end. But I think I have the build pretty much ironed out so that it can clear juice temples, pretty much the fubgun temples, which I'll be showing at the end of this video. But yeah, I'm just going to be going over some of the changes I made since my last video. If you want some of the more nuanced stuff of what I did and what I'm choosing, please go through that video, as I pretty much have an in-depth walkthrough of all of the choices I've made. But essentially I'm just going to go over the differences of between that video and this one. So one of the main things I've changed is I've switched to using a +4 Vertex. So this is going to give +4 to all skills, which is going to dramatically increase the amount of damage I can do, but at the cost of costing more mana. So one thing that is nice about this one is that it does also have some mana cost efficiency. So in order to combat some of the mana costs, I've made a lot of changes on my tree in order to do mana reduction. So I'm kind of balancing out the amount of damage I do by reducing the damage slightly with the mana cost efficiency on the tree, but at the same time I'm still having a ton of ES, so that pretty much survivability is a non-issue. A couple things else I've changed is I've changed the anoint on my amulet to cooked. So cooked is going to give me 60% damage bonus, crit damage bonus, but 25% reduced defenses. So essentially we're going to take a 25% cut to our ES. So this isn't terrible when you have a ton of ES, because this isn't 25% less defenses, it's just 25% reduced. So essentially this 25% is negating kind of like 25% of what like increased global defenses is offering here. Next is I've basically switched out some of my gears so that I'm using increased effective socketed items, and this is just giving me a ton of ES on each of these pieces. I switched off of the night scale gloves because the Vertex itself doesn't have basically any ES on it. We need to recoup some of that ES on the gloves, so I've switched to these, and then I've also just increased the amount of energy shield I'm getting from the boots. So if I really wanted these to be mirror tier, I would look for the ones essentially that are just on exceptional bases, so that they would have 3 sockets, and that's pretty much as high as these get. So yeah, these are pretty much as good as they're gonna get, except for the fact that they don't have the 3rd socket. Otherwise, I have a Palm with the Dreamer that has basically a Spirit Corrupt, just for a little bit of extra spirit. So I can show you what I'm doing with that spirit in a second. And I believe my wand is about the same, just slightly higher rolls, if any. It might even be the same in the last video, I don't really remember. Other things I've changed are the support gems I've used. So because I finished building my Juice Temple, the rare monsters in there are really tanky. So what I've ended up doing is I've re-added damage back onto my Entangle here. So some of the things I've changed was I added Ulnatul's Embrace. So this just gives 40% additional, basically 40% as extra chaos of the original base 40%. And then I added back Considered Casting. So altogether, switching these back to these will pretty much increase the Entangle damage by 50% in terms of the average damage per use. Some of the other things I've changed are I've corrupted up and made my mana remnants level 20. So I believe, I don't think I had a level 20 before. I think the spirit gems are down to 30 divs right now, so they're pretty affordable. And then I've taken off the dog tech from the last video and put on elemental conflux. So this is gonna rotate between 3 elements, or the 3 elements, and buff one of them. So my damage is pretty well split. You can see that the fire and lightning are pretty close. It's a little higher because I have the fire conflux here, but the cold is a little bit low. I'm getting the cold damage from Spirit the Owl, so this will have the extra damage, and it'll pretty much be the same as fire. So all my damages are pretty close together, and I basically get about a 10% damage boost from this. So it's pretty good. I use Uhtred's Exodus. You can go with the one that has one support gem for one more level, but it's pretty negligible at this point. So I would say like the difference is, I mean, the buff really only goes up by 1% here, so it's not super important. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it that I've changed. Oh, I guess for what I'm using the spirit for is that in Mana Remnants, I'm using the same 2 remnant based ones here, but I've added Clarity 1, Mysticism 1 as well. I think I was running Warm Blood before, but you can add Clarity 1 as well as Mysticism 1 here. So even though you have Clarity 2 and Mysticism 2 in Impurity, you can actually run both. So it's actually really nice. So you can also get the mana regeneration as well as more spell damage on full energy shield. So this is really nice. And probably the best use of the spirit I've been able to find so far. I've tried some other ones, including adding like curses through blasphemy, but unless like you're finding yourself dying a lot, I don't think it's super relevant. Other pretty big changes are my headhunter. I got the one with the maximum energy shield being 25, and I also got a strength implicit roll on this. It's important because the strength becomes ES, so you want to actually a pretty high strength roll here as well. So all of this just becomes a lot of ES. So this piece itself is actually giving, that's like 50 strength, right? So that's 25. So 50 ES is coming from just the headhunter itself. So this is really important. For the ring, I've replaced the line where it was all attributes to just strength, so that way we can lock in all of the attributes into strength as well as intelligence on the tree, because dexterity really doesn't add very much except for some, if we wanted to use some support gems, which we don't really need more attributes to run because headhunter is providing the rest of the dexterity. So differences on the passive tree would be that I am now speccing down here. So I've actually removed a whole bunch of stuff. I found that desensitization is pretty bad. Reason being is that you need to take these 2 travel nodes here to get to here, and taking the 2 travel nodes definitely reduces the value of what desensitization is bringing to the table. Other things is I ended up removing the section over here. So with elemental equilibrium, you could take blood tearing, and the real big one was shredding force. This was the really big node that you would get out of this section, but because you also had to take these 2 travel nodes in order to get everything in this section, it ended up being pretty mediocre. And with elemental equilibrium not even giving you cower before the first ones, you would have to take another travel node in order to get all the way up here, and it just ended up being relatively inefficient, so I ended up removing that. I believe, let's see, for the jewel socket, for heroic tragedy, I think this is the same. I believe some people were asking whether or not you could use a different number, and you definitely can. So if you want to find a heroic tragedy, you basically just buy like 20 of these, 30 of them really, and then you just slot them in and see what you get. Most of them are going to be pretty bad, and hopefully you just find one that works. And I found that they actually sell back pretty easily because everyone's using different like socket locations. They could really be using anything, so everyone's just trying them out. So you buy them and then you just sell them, and then someone else usually buys them pretty quickly. But the biggest change is I'm actually going down here. So I'm actually spending quite a bit of travel nodes. So you actually need to take 3, 4, 5, 6 attribute points to get down here, but you definitely get a lot. So I've been enjoying this part of the tree quite a lot because of a few key lines. So the biggest one here is efficient casting, with also mana cost efficiency up along the way. This is adding 36% mana cost efficiency. So mana cost before and after even the +4 levels is pretty much the same. So my Entangle only costs 167 mana here. The other really big ones are, I believe, Melding, Insightfulness, Dampening Shield, as well as Pure Energy. These are super ES like efficient nodes in terms of they give a lot of ES quite efficiently. Even though you see that you do take the 2 nodes here, you basically get these 2 stats combined, which if you actually like have it, it's like way more stat than just, for example, a 15% ES node. So like instead of just getting 15% ES, you'll also get 5 more intelligence as well as 7.5 energy shield recharge rate. So this actually ends up adding a ton of ES. This section here is also really great for ES, gives you a little bit more mana. Unfortunately, you do get 10% less mana here, but it is what it is. You get the 6% intelligence here, which is quite nice. And while you're here, grabbing some crit chance is really nice here. So this section's quite nice. And of course, you're going to be doing crits, so you just get a bunch of extra crit bonus damage right here. So altogether, compared to before, a damage loss, but a massive ES gain. So another thing is with the Vertex, you unspec out of this entire section. This section is really good because of Illuminated Crown. When you have a really high ES helmet, a 70% increased energy shield from the helmet's really good. But because the Vertex has no ES, the only reason you probably take this is for the light radius so that you can find like those temple crystals faster. But this is where I ended up having my tree being. Essentially, I think these points ended up being pretty inefficient for my opinion. And I found that the mana efficiency from this section is pretty good. One loss that kind of sucks that I thought was actually pretty good is obviously Dangerous Blossom here is really nice. 10% extra physical. The extra plant damage here is not actually as nice as it seems because a lot of our bossing damage comes from our cast on crit Bone Cage, which is not a plant skill. So these 3 points weren't the best, which is why I unspec'd it, even though Dangerous Blossom is really nice for our build. Other than that, I think most things are pretty the same. So we lost this section, moved this section, took out that section, basically to go down here and grab these pretty nice points. And then even with all of this, like the energy shield recharge rate is at 1.77, which is basically under 2, which is what I consider to be pretty good. 1.5 I think is where it was, so it's a little bit slower. Oh, I guess that's also because I did change my Sapphire. My last Sapphire had energy shield recharge delay rate decreased or whatever, but I went with just flat spell damage here, so this is just giving more damage. So yeah, survivability is less of a concern, especially after Rite of the Passage procs. We're at 15,000 ES, so I'm just sitting pretty with that. But yeah, I think that's most of the changes. So I think with this, I did want to show a temple run to kind of give a feel for what it's like to do, I guess, probably the hardest content in the game at this point. There isn't really too much harder than this. I'll unlock these rooms real quick. So you can see that I have the Ziri room variant. It's a little bit worse than the one in terms of loot than the one that kind of curls in because I have one less corruption chamber. But I do get to do it Ziri, so hopefully we get something nice out of that. Otherwise, everything has been leveled up. If you want, these are the temple mods. So yeah, with that, let's head in.
Cannot trust a stone to stay still here.
So I'm just gonna give a general commentary, I guess, as I go through this. I think the whole temple pretty much doesn't take more than 20 minutes ish, so Starting at 203 basically, so hopefully this doesn't take very long. With the changes to Entangle, you can see that Entangle is just going to do a lot more damage. Entangle itself will be doing, yeah, with the 50% more damage Entangle does, it definitely just helps in the sense that it's going to tax your mana a bit less with basically less bone cages that need to come out. So mana is still definitely an issue in the sense that when they do get really tanky, when they have extra life, these guys are super annoying. They will drain your mana pool, so yeah, that's why I think Mana Remnants, having that being level 20 is really nice. But playing by yourself, like it's solo in the temple, it's really trivial. Honestly, even with the extra life, they pretty much just pop. So you can see he's kind of just getting evaporated. If you're asking why my loot drops don't make any noise, it's because I have a custom one on, and it's pretty cancerous. So turn off the sound so that I'm not subjecting you guys to it. But yeah, trust me, I do have those sound effects on when I play. Wow, two vertexes back to back. Obviously the ones that have the mana drain kind of blow. They're gonna cause like a dip in your DPS for a little bit. Yeah, with the Palm of the Dreamer, the Gloom Shrine really just makes everything kind of just pop. So those chunks are just going to get destroyed as soon as one thing kind of dies. So you can see, yep, they just start evaporating. It's only the ones like with proximal tangibility really kind of like survive those procs because you're just not like close to them. I'll say when going over one person, 2 people is not bad. You definitely can clear 2 people. Things will just take a bit longer. And I'd say with this build, 3 players is probably the maximum. I would say, like, if they're contributing nothing. After that, things really slow down. Just because of how mana gating a lot of it is. If you're doing solo and you can actually, or if you're the only one doing damage and you have a bunch of leechers, it's not terrible since you're getting all the headhunter stacks, but definitely not viable if you're running like with a rarity bot that's taking like, wow, 3 vertices. That's a lot. So yeah, as I was saying, carrying 2 other people, probably the limits in terms of just how fast you can clear. You can definitely do more in the sense that, like, you can definitely do it. It's just not gonna be fun since it's just gonna take forever. That's pretty good. 3 locks so far, and we're pretty much lock capped. Yeah, none of these rooms are really challenging, especially once you get your headhunter stacks going off. Like, yeah, it's pretty trivial. I'm not really even concerned about mana, nor am I even hitting my flask. This build isn't as good in party play in the sense that we don't actually have infinite mana like blood mages. So without like mana leech, or I guess life leech, and converting the cost to life, mana costs will eventually add up, which is why there's so much investment in mana efficiency. As mana efficiency increases the damage per mana that we're doing, and that's usually a bigger problem than the raw damage per second, since the damage per second is already quite high. So going over the mods here, this is actually a pretty nice one since this one will be quick. Since there's no extra life and there's no reduced crit damage. So I'll grab a Tsiri here. They do have elemental resistances, but that's just kind of like a fraction of our damage. So with all of our fizz and chaos going through, it's pretty much a non-issue. That is kind of the nice thing about elementals, is that it's adding so much chaos damage. If we actually take a look here as I just keep running through this. So this con that's actually so trivial. You can pretty much just watch a show while doing this. Like when you're just ending up doing these temple grinds, like farming the mirrors, farming the locks. You don't really even need to pay that much attention for the most part. Like you're pretty much unkillable with all the headhunter buffs. So yeah, looking at Entangle here, we can see that the chaos damage is actually like almost as much as the physical damage. Obviously we have a bunch of random headhunter buffs right now, so maybe we're just getting an extra who knows what, but the chaos damage is pretty significant, and the good thing is most mobs don't have chaos resistance, so you're pretty much just doing true damage to them. And then obviously their armor is like broken the instant you hit them. I don't even think I can, they just die too fast before I can even see the little debuff marker. Maybe on the boss here, but yeah, you can see over here on their health bar, yeah, they have that little armor break symbol. So they're pretty much armor broken immediately. So very little to worry about for armor. Mana does run out from time to time, so it's like pretty important to run around the map so that you're actually picking up all of those mana remnants. If you kind of just like throw it from the center of the room, there's like points in time where you do run out of mana just because you're not picking up those remnants. So I think, yeah, it's very noticeable when you're picking up remnants and you're not. So you can basically see occasionally my mana pool just immediately refill, and that's 100% just due to the remnants. Hate these guys, and there they go.
Nature takes what's old.
So yeah, just in general, I think this temple generates me roughly 60 divs in solo play without a generator. Having a generator obviously add more. It's unlucky. I feel like I normally don't get a net positive of belts, or not belts, locks to do it when I have a generator, and then the instant I don't have a generator, I'm going over my cap, so just a little unlucky there. Sustaining a generator is kind of RNG. Depends if you want to gamble something's having a lock or not. But yeah, personally, Temple's really profitable. I've only finished it roughly like a few days ago, like 3 or 4 days ago. Wasn't really farming it very hard, but in hindsight, now that I'm done with it, I should have. Like, this is just way too lucrative. So if you're still playing the league, I mean, this is definitely one of the best money-making methods. So I finished my temple after opening 250 temples. So I've done about like 35 temples since, and dropped a mirror and a lock. So yeah, it's definitely good. Whether or not I got really lucky with that, probably. I believe, yeah, it's running in solo. I think somebody else was posting the average like mirror drop rate. It's like a 1 in 150 runs. But yeah, if your goal is to get a natty mirror, I'd say like you have no other content to farm than temple. So hopefully my goal is just to get one more, and then probably be the end of the league for me. Yeah, I think we've been in the temple for about 10 minutes. We're not halfway done yet, but definitely ramps up because some of the rooms are a lot faster than others. You can also try to focus a little bit more. Sometimes I just get stuck, find the last guy. And obviously these things take a little bit of time. Crowd walker, you kind of just blink around. Yeah, I hate this guy specifically. This is the slowest one. With this build, it's actually kind of nice. You can actually kind of like skirt around the edges of the map sometimes in terms of just getting your stuff through. And also you can get your entangle to go through the walls. So it's really nice just to like throw an entangle out through the door. And sometimes you're just gonna clear like basically like partial clear the next room before you even get there. So really along the way, I'm just pretty much just pressing entangle, and then I do use the threshing vines on the bosses and the rares just to kind of speed things up, and I'll throw down Citadel of Power. Pretty unnecessary, but you know, just want to be a little faster. It is faster. Let's see. So another thing is I like to just kind of like check these little palms in my inventory. You know, normally like you should probably what's it called, quality them, since it does increase the amount of chaos res you get. So you can see mine is quality, completely unnecessary in this build since we are CI, and the only thing quality gives is gonna give you a little more chaos res, so don't bother there. But yeah, checking these in here, you can just toss them on the ground. And for the lobby onjas, we're just looking for 70, so yeah, did not hit. And honestly, I'm really wondering if I want to be picking up these like Annul Orbs and Greater Chaoses. They're worth good money, but at the end of the day, it's like even 100 divs for a whole day is just like, well, that's just 2 runs. So about 44 rooms in right now. Let's take a look. We have let's see, 28 divs, 38 divs so far. Oops, I am running into a wall. But yeah, I think this build is definitely good enough to kind of just like pseudo pay attention. Definitely grind super easily, like watch a movie, watch a show. It really you really don't have to do very much to drive this build at all. Just literally blink in and just start left clicking. That guy takes forever. Let's see if he drops anything. Oh, do not press alt. Yeah, pressing alt will lag your PC. I don't need to level up in your rooms anymore. Just going through this. First chain is the longest part, and then the second chain is really short. It's all in the first chain, pretty much. So I've probably gambled like a ton of vertexes in this league, and I've only gotten 1+4. I'm a bet it's actually pretty negative EV to actually gamble them, but it's fun, so whatever. But I have my doubts on whether or not it's actually profitable to be gambling these, especially with the cultivation ore right now. Like, well, it's at least like 12 divs. So let's see, how much are these worth? 12 divs, so they're 24 divs to gamble, and then obviously you're just using some other materials. So 25 divs to gamble this, and I think I've only hit 1. And that +4, since I actually rolled off the crit chance, I only sold it for 200 divs, which is only like a 8x. But the thing is, I've definitely failed way more vertexes. Like at least like 20, maybe 30 vertexes are just like complete bricks. So I guess you really do have to hit big on that +4. I really wonder what the actual odds between that +4 is. It must be really low. There's so many possibilities. So let's see, this is 22, so we'll do these after. So I'll just do a little bit of gambling at the very end of this video. for the people who stick around. And I believe that is my chain. No, we have, yeah, that's the first loop. So pretty much go around once, and then just this section real quick. This is the short part of the chain. I've been in for 16 minutes so far. Start to breeze through these. Or lock, which is nice if I had more spots, and if I had a generator to lock, that would have been nice. But, you know, we can't have nice things. So in terms of clearing this, in terms of just build power, it's pretty clear, you know, if you're just chasing like probably the highest power build, Blood Mage is definitely going to have a higher cap. And realistically, I think it would be pretty cool to do a plant version of this build on a Blood Mage. I think everyone is running Comet right now, so I think it's pretty cool to run Bone Cage with all the fizz damage. Since I honestly just wanted to synergize with all the plants, I think that was my goal, was to do a plant build. Even though I end up actually using Bone Cage, I guess it's at least it's a fizz build. Although I'm certain the Comet is just overall a better scaling skill, because that skill is absolutely bananas. From watching my friends play with Blood Mage Comet. You know, this build definitely still good. The higher end is definitely not as high, but it's way easier to build. I'm not using any Adorned or anything like that. So a lot of the builds in this one, or the upgrades that you get on this one, can be very incremental, and you don't really need that much to get the build off the ground, which some of the other builds, Blood Mage, at least you need thousands of divs to get working. Thousands and thousands. This one you could definitely get working off way less. With a lower budget, definitely look at the first video I posted. I think that one's a lot more budget friendly. I even have even lower budget suggestions, such as using a staff instead of the wand and Palm of the Dreamer. You're able to get some really good stuff. And honestly, this build is not hard to get off the ground either. I think Fizz spell levels is really niche on a wand, and they go for a pretty low price. And that is the temple. So under 20 minutes, about 19 minutes. This isn't a zero run, so we'll be doing this. This is, a lot of people don't do this because it's just kind of slow, and most of the time you pretty much get nothing. I believe it's about a 1 in 6 for getting her chest piece. I have gotten her yes only one with, I think it was helmet, so it was like over 4,000 divs. Fortunately, I failed to gamble on that. I did try to cultivate it to try to get the ES corrupt. It would have been really cool if I did. That one scaled so hard, and honestly it's such a sick piece that, you know, I feel like I would even want to try it, because like you can get like 1400 ES plus all those sockets and the plus level on the corrupt gems. It's like such a crazy piece. I guess that would be definitely an upgrade I could do if I just had many mirrors to spend, because even the cheap one with a low roll on the ES is definitely like 2 mirrors. So let's see if we get lucky right here.
This is how it happens. Come on, hurry. I need more time.
And let's see it. Hopefully we get lucky here. And then we'll gamble the vertexes. So looks like exactly 6. Ooh, we got 70 divs here. So pretty good. Not lucky here. Got a reflecting staff, level 19, unfortunately. We'll grab one of these just for fun. At least we got a cultivation orb here, so not terrible. And we can head out. So that's the temple. We have the lock, so we can close this, and lucky we got a dynamo. So essentially with this, I mean, I just lock these two, and if I get an extra lock, like a third one, I'll lock the generator. The generator actually does add a ton, since it buffs the Stone Legions at level 3, just giving like basically a ton more buffs to all of the smithy, or all of the barracks and commanders and armories. So these just get a ton of buffs. So definitely way better loot. Maybe even like 15% more loot, 20% just from that. So yeah, let's check these out. Quick little gambles before I sign off. So that's unlucky there, and I'll just div these up a little bit. Wow. Okay. Essentially just looking for some decent crit chance on these. 27 is good enough. Slap these. Boom, boom, boom. And boom, boom, boom. +2. So all bricked. Unfortunate. But that's pretty much it. So hope you enjoyed this video. I think this is pretty much the culmination of the build. Everything else I can do now is pretty small. Yeah, getting like a +1 level. I've put a lock on the amulet just to see if it was gonna be a lucky corrupt up for like a +1 all skills to not get it. Very bad. But yeah, like getting +6 physical spells on a sanctify on the wand is probably the next step. That is definitely a couple divs. I mean, a couple mirrors. I think just the wand itself is 2 mirrors if you're going for an exceptional. Well, not the wand, but it crafted is like 2 to 3 mirrors, and then not to mention all the locks you need to find a good sanctify. And same thing with the amulet. Getting a +4 here with very similar stats here would be really good. But the next thing I'll probably do is swap out the stone charm for another rite of passage. Probably get the cat, and then realistically could probably even go for the stag 2 for the third one. I don't think these two are super relevant, so those are just like things you can do. And then with stag, you do get 30% extra elemental res, so then I can drop the elemental res on the gold ring and grab cast speed. So I think that'll also be really nice, and that'll kind of wrap up the build. But yeah, with the build I'm currently running 120 rarity, and yeah, that's the build. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the comments. Yeah, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching.